That order guaranteed him a court-martial and execution before the battle even began. July 1943, Prokhorovka. Lieutenant Kovalev does what every field manual considers insanity. He moves his artillery out to suicide distance. 200 meters, no trenches, direct fire against tigers. It was not a battle, but an execution. A mathematically calculated suicide that turned into the most horrific meat grinder of that summer. Why did he decide to exchange the lives of his men at a rate of 1 to 3? How did the physics of close-quarters combat defeat German steel? And what terrible price did the commander actually pay for those 8 minutes of hell? July 1943. The steppe is melting under the sun. The air is thick, saturated with the smell of sagebrush, hot metal, and burnt diesel. In the panoramic sight, the horizon trembles. The gunner wipes away sweat that stings his eyes. His hands rest on the traverse hand wheels, fingers black with oil and ingrained dirt. This is not a heroic pose from a propaganda poster. This is heavy, dirty work, where every movement is honed to automatism. Distance, 1,000 meters. In the crosshairs, the silhouette of a tiger. Angular, heavy, it crawls forward, grinding the dry earth with its tracks. A steel box, invulnerable to fear. The command. Impact. The ZIS-3 gun jumps, its spades biting deep into the ground. The ringing in the ears instantly cuts off all the sounds of the world. The shot hits the eardrums like a sledgehammer. The barrel recoil is sharp, predatory. The loader is already reaching for the next shell, back muscles tense as steel cables. The weight of the ammo crate aches in the joints, but stopping is impossible. The gunner does not blink. He looks through the optics, expecting to see black smoke, torn metal, the enemy machine stopping. A flash on the German's frontal armor, a shower of sparks.
The 76mm caliber shell strikes the frontal plate, and it goes into the sky with a screaming ricochet. Not even a dent remains on the armor, just a scratch on the gray paint. At a distance of 1,000 meters, our standard gun merely scratches the tiger. It is spitting in the face of death. Kinetic energy is lacking. Physics works against us. Ballistics at this range turns a formidable weapon into a useless pipe. The tank does not stop. The tiger's turret begins to turn, slowly, heavily, with deadly calm. Inside the gun crew, time compresses. Seconds stretch into eternity. You see the 88mm barrel, that black pupil of the abyss, groping for your position. You have no armor. You only have a shield capable of stopping shrapnel, but not a direct hit from a tank shell. You are naked before a steel-clad monster. The breech block clangs, ejecting a smoking casing underfoot. The loader wheezes, ramming a new armor-piercing round into the chamber, but everyone understands. This is a gesture of despair. The mathematics of war have changed. The old rules no longer work. The man who wrote the field manuals in '41 had not seen these machines. The German's shot sounds different. It is dry, rolling. The earth heaves. The blast wave breaks bones before the shrapnel arrives. The gun is overturned. The crew turns into a bloody mess. There are no last words, no thoughts of home. There is only a flash and darkness. This is the tactical crisis of the summer of '43, a situation requiring a deadly decision. We faced a problem that cannot be solved by quantity. At long ranges, our guns are powerless. Distance is the enemy. While the shell flies 1,000 meters, it loses velocity, loses penetrating power. And the German crew, utilizing magnificent optics and a powerful cannon, shoots our batteries like targets in a gallery. The archival reports are dry as a verdict. Artillery losses are rising. Fire effectiveness is falling. Commanders write reports demanding heavy guns, but there are none. There are only ZIS-3s and people who must accomplish the impossible. Lieutenant Kovalev was not a dreamer. He was a practitioner who knew the price of iron and blood. He had seen those ricochets. He had seen the torn bodies of his friends. He understood. To continue fighting by the book meant sending men to the slaughter. Heroism in such conditions is not throwing oneself under a tank with a grenade. Heroism is finding a way to pierce that damned armor. Kovalev walks the positions after the battle. Glass and casings crunch underfoot. He looks at the holes in the destroyed equipment, analyzes, calculates. If penetration is impossible from 1,000 meters, then the distance must be shortened. But getting closer is suicide. The tank will destroy the gun before it can fire the first shot. A vicious circle. A dead end, paid for with thousands of lives. But war is not just calibers. It is geometry and psychology. Kovalev looks at the map of the Prokhorovka bridgehead. Ravines, gullies, tall rye. The topography here is either a ready-made grave or a perfect trap. He realizes, to survive, he must break the rules. He must abandon the safety of distance. He must let the enemy within striking distance of a knife. The structure of the future battle takes shape in his head. A knife fight in a phone booth. In this war, there is no room for sentiment. Emotions are merely a consequence of physics. If a shell does not pierce armor, no love for the motherland will help. Physics must be changed. The velocity of the shell's encounter with the armor must be increased. And this can be done in only one way: shoot point blank. The gun is an instrument for the surgical removal of armor, and this instrument must work flawlessly. But for this, it is not enough for the crew to simply pull the lanyard. The crew must become a single organism. The loader is the muscles, the gunner is the eyes, the commander is the brain. A second of delay will cost the life of the entire crew. Kovalev lights a cigarette. His hands tremble, not from fear, but from overexertion. He knows that for the decision he is making now, he could be court-martialed before the fight even starts. Regulations forbid placing guns for direct fire in front of infantry lines. It is madness. But he looks at his neighbor's destroyed battery, at the black craters where just yesterday cannons stood, trying to duel from 1.5 kilometers away. No one was left there. The regulations did not save them. Kovalev throws down the cigarette butt and stomps it out with his boot. The decision is made. This will not be a fight by the rules. This will be suicide tactics. But suicides get a chance to take the enemy with them. He goes to the men. They sit on ammunition crates, faces grey from dust and fatigue. Gunpowder soot has eaten into their pores. They know what is happening. They saw the ricochets. They wait for an order that will again send them into a senseless duel with distance. But Kovalev will offer them something else. He will offer them not just to die. He will offer them to kill. Silence hangs in the air. Only the distant rumble of the front is audible. The ground underfoot vibrates slightly. There, beyond the horizon, a steel avalanche accumulates, ready to break through the defense. The tactical crisis has reached its peak. Tomorrow, hell will be here. And in this hell, only the one who shoots first, shoots fast, and hits for sure will survive. At a distance of 200 meters, it is impossible to miss. But it is also almost impossible to survive. It is there, to that line of death, that Kovalev will lead his battery. Lieutenant Kovalev kneels in the mud. Around him is a graveyard of iron. This is not a staff dugout with maps and hot tea. This is the front line, where the air is dense as jelly with dust and the smell of decomposition. Before him is the twisted shield of a destroyed gun. The torn edges of the metal are sharp as razors. Kovalev runs a finger along a hole, cold steel. Yesterday it was white hot when a German shell punched right through it, mixing the gunner with the elevation mechanism. There is no place for illusions here. Kovalev is not a novel hero. He is a technician of war. In his head are not slogans, but numbers. Hard, dry numbers that determine who will see tomorrow's dawn. He takes out a notebook. The pencil lead breaks from the pressure. He writes, scribbles, calculates. This is the mathematics of death. Input data: frontal armor of a German heavy tank, 100 millimeters of high-quality hardened steel. Our weapon: divisional gun ZIS-3, caliber 76 millimeters. Kovalev looks at the field before him. Estimated landmarks are placed mentally. 1,000 meters. Effectiveness of the BR-350A armor-piercing shell: 0. The shell loses velocity. Its kinetic energy is enough only to leave a gray blotch on the German armor. This is the distance of unpunished execution. The Germans know this. They stand at a kilometer and methodically, like at a shooting range, knock out our crews. 500 meters. Theoretical limit of side penetration. But the front is still invulnerable. Chance of ricochet, 80%. At this distance, shell dispersion is still too great. You can aim for the driver's vulnerable hatch, but hit the sloped plate. Result? Ricochet. And a return high-explosive shell that turns the crew into ground meat. Kovalev spits angrily. He feels like an engineer given the task of building a bridge out of straw. But the bridge must support a train. He descends lower into the ravine. 200 meters to the road. 200 meters. At this distance, ballistics change. The shell's flight trajectory becomes almost straight. No arcs. A straight line from muzzle to armor. Flight time of the shell, fractions of a second. The enemy won't even have time to notice the flash. At 200 meters, the impact energy is colossal. The shell doesn't just hit, it bites. It stitches through the side, it breaks the road wheels, it jams the turret. Fire effectiveness? 100%. It is impossible to miss. It is like putting a pistol to a temple. But there is the other side of the equation. 200 meters is the distance of certain destruction, not only by a tank gun, but also by a bow machine gun. At such a distance, the German machine gunner sees the artillerymen's faces. He sees their eyelashes trembling. A burst from an MG-42 at this range cuts a man in half. This is not battle tactics. This is exchange tactics. One of our shots, one of their machines. And, most likely, the death of our crew. Senior Sergeant Kravtsov approaches Kovalev.
He wipes his hands with a rag soaked in fuel oil.
Kravtsov is an old soldier. He has been fighting since '41. He understands everything without words. He sees where the lieutenant is looking. "Too close, Comrade Lieutenant," Kravtsov says hoarsely. "Regulations forbid it. Positions must be echeloned in depth. If we place the guns here, we'll be crushed by treads. We won't even have time to run away." Kovalev turns to him. There is no fanaticism in his eyes, only the cold calculation of a surgeon cutting living tissue to save the patient. "And if we stand in depth, Kravtsov, we'll be shot from a kilometer away like sitting ducks." The lieutenant's voice is hard as the strike of a bolt. "You saw yesterday's fight. 3 batteries burned in 20 minutes. We didn't knock out anyone, not a single tank. We just scratched their paint." Kovalev draws a line on the ground with his boot. "Here. We stand here.
point blank. "It's madness," the sergeant states calmly.
He isn't arguing. He is weighing the risks.
"It's the only chance to pierce the side," Kovalev cuts him off. "At a distance of 200 meters, the muzzle velocity is 662 meters per second. Armor penetration is maximum. We won't be trading shots. We will shoot to kill. One shot, one corpse."
"And then?" asks Kravtsov, looking at the road line.
"And then, whatever luck allows. In this war, Sergeant, no guarantees are given." In this dialogue, there is no drama. It is a production meeting in the factory of death. They are discussing not the fate of the homeland, but the technical characteristics of metal and explosives. Kovalev understands. He is planning a crime against the regulations. For unauthorized advancement of positions to the front edge, he could be shot by his own counterintelligence officers. But the fear of the tribunal recedes before the fear of uselessness. Worse than death can only be a useless death. The lieutenant looks at his hands. They are dirty, covered in abrasions. These hands must direct the guns to even the odds. A cruel logic operates here. The life of an artilleryman is cheaper than a tank. But if the artilleryman takes a tank with him, the balance settles. Kovalev closes the notebook. The decision is made. It was born not of bravery, but of anger and hopelessness. From the understanding that standard tactics are dead. "Get the men ready, Sergeant. We're going to dig." "Full profile?" Kravtsov clarifies. "No, just for the gun. We'll dig ourselves in when it starts. Camouflage is our armor. If they see us before we fire, we're corpses." Thoughts work fast. Kovalev already sees the fire scheme. Sectors of fire overlap. Guns stand not in a line, but staggered. Crossfire. In the side, only in the side. Leave the frontal armor for the heroes in the newspapers. We will hit where it is thin. The wind raises dust. The sun stands at its zenith, flooding the steppe with merciless light. Kovalev knows. Soon this landscape will change. Soon everything that can burn will burn here, both metal and people. But now they have a plan, a suicidal, wild plan that goes against all instructions of the artillery school. But this plan relies on the laws of physics, not the paragraphs of the manual, and physics cannot be deceived. You can only use its laws to kill more effectively. 200 meters, pistol shot distance for a field gun. Kovalev lights up. The smoke tastes bitter. Mathematics has ended. Heavy work begins. The night of July 12th, 1943, is dark as pitch. There is no silence. The steppe hums. This hum does not come from the sky, but from underground. It is layers of soil trembling under the weight of hundreds of treads. Somewhere out there, beyond the invisible line of the horizon, German tank divisions are warming up their engines. The low, vibrating roar of Maybach engines makes one's jaw ache. It is the sound of an approaching tsunami. Lieutenant Kovalev stands at the edge of the ravine. In the darkness, he almost cannot see his hands, but he feels the terrain with the soles of his boots. Here, in the lowland, are thick grass and bushes, an ideal place for an ambush. An ideal place for a mass grave. The order sounds in a whisper, but it is heavier than lead. "Guns to battle! Here!" The violation of regulations is committed routinely. According to the rules of artillery science, the battery should stand deep in the defense, covered by infantry and minefields. Kovalev places his guns on the very front edge. Between them and the road where the tanks will come, 200 meters of emptiness. No infantry trenches ahead,
No hedgehogs, only the bare steppe. The soldiers do not ask questions. They are too tired. They harness themselves to the carriages like barge haulers. The ZIS-3 divisional gun weighs 1,200 kilograms in combat position. Wheels sink in the loose earth of the ravine. Men wheeze, tearing off fingernails, pushing the cold metal. The creak of axles seems deafening in the night silence. "Quiet!" hisses Senior Sergeant Kravtsov. "If they hear us, they'll cover us with mortars." The guns are rolled into the bushes. Now begins the most important part: earthworks. In war, a shovel saves more often than a rifle. One must bite into the earth, become part of it. Every handful of soil thrown in front of the gun shield is an extra millimeter of protection against shrapnel. The ground is dry, stony. Sapper shovels ring, hitting roots. The soldiers work silently, frenziedly. They remove sod in neat squares to lay it back later. Camouflage is the religion of this night. If German observers notice fresh earth in the morning, the battery will cease to exist in the first minute of battle. The gun must look like a bush, like a bump, like a shadow. Until it fires, it must not exist. Kovalev walks from crew to crew. He checks the sectors of fire. He lies on the gunner's frame, looks into the panoramic sight. Nothing is visible in the darkness, but he knows the landmarks by heart. "Number 1, he whispers to the gun commander. "Your sector is from the dry tree to the turn. Distance 200. Fixed sight." "Roger, 200, the commander responds. His voice is raspy from tobacco and dust. There is no room for maneuver in this ravine. The guns stand in a line, hidden in the folds of the terrain. One cannot retreat from here. Pulling the guns back under fire is impossible. The horses are killed or taken to the rear. There are no tractors. This is a suicide position. The fighters understand this, but there is no fear. There is the grim determination of people cornered. They prepare shells, wipe factory grease from casings with rags. The grease is thick, sticky. The shells are heavy. Armor-piercing slugs gleam dully in the light of rare stars.
They are laid out not in crates but right at hand, on the parapet, so as not to waste precious seconds retrieving them. Kravtsov approaches Kovalev. They smoke into a sleeve, hiding the glow. "The earth is shaking, Comrade Lieutenant," says the sergeant. "Lots of them out there." "Lots," Kovalev agrees. "But the road is narrow. They won't all climb in at once. They'll go in a column." "If they send infantry ahead, we're finished," Kravtsov states a fact. Without infantry cover, artillery is blind and defenseless against submachine gunners. "They won't." Kovalev inhales the acrid smoke. "They are confident in their armor. They think we are crushed. They will march. It is a risk, a monstrous risk. Kovalev is betting the lives of 36 men against the psychology of the German command. He is counting on their overconfidence, on the fact that the Tigers won't comb every ditch, but will push straight through, believing in their invulnerability. Work finishes toward morning. The guns are dug in up to the wheel hubs. Withered grass and sagebrush branches are thrown on top. Muzzle brakes are wrapped in burlap so they don't glare in the sun. Now it is not a battery. It is 6 invisible traps set along the road of death. The sky in the east begins to turn gray. The air becomes cold, pre-dawn. Dew falls on the metal of the breeches. Men are dropping from fatigue, but sleep is impossible. Nerves are taut as strings. From the side where the enemy stands, a roar grows. It is no longer just a hum. It is the clang of metal, the squeal of tracks, the exhaust of hundreds of engines. The armada wakes up. Kovalev looks at his watch. 4 in the morning.
the time when one wants to live most of all. He looks at his fighters. Dirty tunics, hands worn to blood, faces smeared with earth. They do not look like poster warriors. They look like diggers who just dug their own grave, but decided to lie in it with weapons in hand. No farewell speeches. No words about the motherland and Stalin. Here, in this ravine, words have lost meaning. Only gestures and glances remain. Kovalev checks his TT pistol, racks the slide. A cartridge in the chamber. This is his personal, final argument. "Places," he commands quietly. The command passes down the chain. The clicks of gun bolts sound like a dry cough. An armor-piercing shell clangs into the breech. The breech block wedge rises, locking the barrel. That's it. There is no way back. Bridges are burned, or rather, we cut off our own retreat. We turned this ravine into a trap, and now we wait for the beast. The ground begins to jump with a fine tremor. Through binoculars, a wall of dust is seen rising on the horizon. It blocks the sun. They are coming. The iron fist of the Wehrmacht, which must smash our front at Prokhorovka. And against them, 6 guns of 76mm caliber dug into the ground 200 meters from the road. And a handful of men who decided it is better to die standing than live on their knees. But they do not intend to die. They intend to work. Kovalev presses against the binocular eyepieces. His heart beats against his ribs in heavy, slow strokes. It begins. Dawn cuts through the darkness but brings no relief. On the contrary, with the first rays of the sun comes the understanding of reality. We are sitting in a pit we dug ourselves, and right in front of us is a corridor down which a steel avalanche will go. Tension hangs in the air, dense as an electrical charge before a thunderstorm. Nerves are stretched to ringing. Lieutenant Kovalev knows. Ordering to die is simple. The regulations give him this right. The article on failure to execute a combat order implies execution by firing squad. But to order men to wait cold-bloodedly while a 30-ton tank drives up to a stone's throw distance, that is different. Here, the fear of death can paralyze the will. Hands will start shaking. The gunner will jerk the wheel prematurely. The loader will drop the shell. Panic is an infection. If one falters, everyone will run. Therefore, he does not give the order through a runner. He gathers the gun commanders, 6 sergeants, 6 men on whom the lives of 30 soldiers depend. They approach, crouching, although shooting has not yet started. The instinct of self-preservation works in advance. They gather in a small depression near the commander's trench periscope. Faces grey, unshaven, eyes inflamed from a sleepless night and earth dust. Senior Sergeant Kravtsov stands a bit to the side, rolling a cigarette in his fingers, but does not light it. Waiting. Kovalev looks at them. He does not see subordinates. He sees partners in a deadly business. Here's the layout. The lieutenant's voice is quiet, dry, devoid of intonation. We stand point blank. Regulations are violated. Position is a meat grinder. He pauses. Somewhere far away, a lark is heard singing over the steppe, not knowing that hell is beneath it. If anyone thinks it will be possible to withdraw to the second line, forget it. No tractors, no horses. We are tied to the guns. This is a one-way ticket. The sergeants are silent. They look at their boots, at the horizon, at the lieutenant. No one is surprised. They are artillerymen. They know the mathematics of war better than the infantry. They know that people leave this position alive only in the reports of the Soviet Information Bureau. I cannot order you to be suicide bombers, continues Kovalev. I can order you to hold the defense, but it can be held in different ways. You can shoot from a kilometer,
unmask yourself, and die under high explosives without doing harm. Or you can let them in to 200 meters. He looks everyone in the eye. A heavy, pressing gaze. To 200 meters, men. That means you will see their faces through the viewing slits. That means if we miss the first one, there will be no second chance. But if we hit, we burn them. I propose an exchange. Our lives for their tanks. The rate is 1 to 3. Who isn't ready, speak now. I'll transfer you to the rear, to the supply train. No one will judge. The silence becomes tangible. This is the moment of truth. A deal with conscience. The commander removes the burden of a solitary decision and places it on the shoulders of these 6 men. Now it is their choice, their war. Kravtsov finally strikes his flint. A spark, a wisp of smoke. The smell of acrid shag tobacco hits the nose, overpowering the smell of sagebrush. To the supply train, you say? Kravtsov grins, blowing a stream of smoke into the sky. The porridge is tastier there, of course. But it's boring. He spits on the ground. We stay, Comrade Lieutenant. Why run? We've done enough running. We ran in 41, ran in 42. Enough. The land has run out. The others nod, silently. Without pompous words, for the motherland, without oaths. It is a masculine decision, made not from a good life, but from anger, from hatred for their own powerlessness that haunted them for 2 years of war. They are tired of being targets. They want to become hunters, even if the price of this hunt is life. Then we work, Kovalev nods. Now to business. Open fire only on my command. Even if nerves fail, endure. Whoever shoots early, I will shoot personally. Gunners, hit the tracks and the side. Loaders, shells on the ground, wipe off the grease. That's all. Places. They disperse. Short, choppy movements. No hugs goodbye. Kovalev is left alone. He feels cold sweat running down his back. He just signed a death sentence for 36 people. And himself. But a strange thing. His soul feels lighter. The choice is made. Uncertainty is gone. The remaining time goes to ritual. These are the final touches before battle. Quiet work boils at the guns. There is no fuss here.
There is the concentration of professionals preparing an instrument. Breech operators check the mechanisms. The mechanism must work like a clock. Clang, open. Clang, closed. If the breech jams after a shot, it is death. The casing will swell in the chamber, and the cannon will turn into a piece of useless iron. Therefore, extractors are cleaned with maniacal thoroughness. Gunners wipe the panorama optics with soft flannel. A speck of dust on the lens could cost a miss. And a miss at 200 meters is not a mistake. It is a verdict. They turn the hand wheels, checking the smoothness of the movement. The barrel must move softly, without jerks, becoming an extension of the gunner's arm. Loaders prepare their conveyor belt. Crates are opened, shells wiped dry. They lie in a row, shining with steel sides. Fuses checked. Each shell weighs over 6 kilograms. In a minute of battle, a loader must throw a ton of metal. This is work that tears the aorta. They limber up shoulders, tighten belts. Men light up. The last drags are the sweetest. Smoke mixes with the morning fog. There is almost no conversation. Someone writes a note home, the pencil tearing the paper. Someone just looks at the sky, memorizing the color. Fear has not gone anywhere. It sits inside, a cold lump in the stomach.
But this fear is driven into a corner by discipline and the decision made. The ground begins to vibrate again, now stronger. The roar of engines approaches. It is no longer background noise, but the dominant sound of the world. Mixed with it is the clatter of tracks, the sound of tearing metal. Kovalev looks at his watch. The hands crawl excruciatingly slowly. 5 minutes to contact. 3 minutes. He sees Sergeant Kravtsov at his gun extinguish his cigarette on his boot heel and neatly hide the butt in his tunic pocket. "I'll finish it later," reads this gesture. The optimism of a hanged man, or the confidence of a professional. "Cruise!" Kovalev's command sounds not loud, but it cuts through the engine roar. "To battle!" Men freeze at the mechanisms, clicks of safety catches. Now they are a single organism, a killing machine consisting of steel and flesh. Everything freezes. Even the wind dies down, as if afraid to interfere. Ahead, from behind the hill, the first black cross on a turret appears. Then a second, a third. They are coming, straight at us. Kovalev does not breathe. He waits for the steel beast to enter the death zone, the zone where there is no pity, no fear, only ballistics and reload speed. The deal with conscience is concluded. Now it is time to pay the bills. The sun rises higher, but the light dims. On the horizon stands a wall of dust and soot. They appear from behind the crest of the hill. First barrels with muzzle brakes looking like mace heads, then angular turrets, then massive hulls hung with spare tracks. 30 tanks. A full heavy Wehrmacht battalion spills out into the operational open. They march in a tight column, confident in their invulnerability. Tracks grind the dry earth into flour. The roar of engines is such that the diaphragm vibrates in the chest. The distance shrinks. 500 meters. In the panoramic sight, the Tiger takes up almost the entire field of view. The commander of the German machine is seen leaning out of the hatch, surveying the terrain with binoculars. He does not look at the bushes by the road. He looks into the distance, searching for Soviet batteries on the horizon. He does not know that death is already looking him in the face from a stone's throw away. 300 meters. The ground underfoot moves. The guns, dug into the hubs, tremble. Dust falls from the camouflage nets. Gunners' fingers cramp on the hand wheels. The temptation to pull the trigger is unbearable. Fear screams in the ears, "Shoot!" But shooting is forbidden. Too early. A ricochet at this distance is failure. Must wait. 200 meters. The column enters the bend of the road, exposing their sides. Gray plates of armor between the wheels are open. The perfect target. Fire! The command is not heard. It drowns in the roar of the united volley of 6 guns. The air in front of the position tears apart. Muzzle blasts blow away the camouflage, exposing the barrels. But that no longer matters. The physics of close combat takes over. At 200 meters, the shell needs no flight time. You see the muzzle flash and instantly see the result. The first shell hits the lead tank under the turret. The ring of impact is heard even through the cannonade. The armor-piercing slug stitches through the side like cardboard. Inside, the ammunition detonates. The multi-ton turret jumps and slides sideways, crushing the hull. A pillar of flame 5 meters high shoots from the hatches. The Germans do not understand what is happening. For them, it is shock. They see no flashes on the horizon. The blows come from nowhere. From the grass, point blank. Fire! The second tank takes a hit in the engine compartment. Diesel fuel ignites instantly. Black, oily smoke obscures the view for the following machines. Chaos begins. The formation breaks.
Rear machines run into the front ones, clang of steel on steel. Tiger turrets begin to rotate in panic. Long barrels search for targets but cannot lower low enough to hit the guns standing in the hollow. But machine guns work. Tracers from MG-42s cut the bushes. Branches, earth, chunks of sod fly into the crew's faces. Bullets peck at the shield cover like hail on a tin roof. If you stick your head out past the edge of the shield, it kills. Rate of fire, frantic. It is a conveyor belt. The loader is no longer a human. He is an ammunition feed automaton. Bend, jerk. A shell weighing 6 kilograms flies into the breech. Fist rams it home with a ring. Breech block clangs shut.
Ready?
The gunner doesn't look for weak spots. At this range, the whole tank is one continuous weak spot. Crosshairs on the center of the silhouette. Squeeze the trigger. Shot. Recoil is sharp, angry. The breech flies back, barely missing the commander's chest. The extractor spits out the casing. It smokes, brass heated to 200 degrees. It falls underfoot, ringing against other casings. The air smells of burnt gunpowder, ammonia, and hot iron. Nothing to breathe. Throat raw, eyes watering. But stopping is impossible. One of the German tanks turns on the spot, trying to crush the gun with its tracks. It looms like a huge grey mountain. The gunner of the third gun screams something inarticulate. He spins the horizontal traverse wheel with such force that it seems he will strip the threads. The barrel turns. Shot point blank. Into the drive sprocket. The track bursts with a deafening crack. The track flies off, uncoiling like a snake on the ground. The tank spins sideways from inertia. It freezes, helpless and open. The next shell finishes it in the side. 8 minutes. This battle lasts only 8 minutes, but time flows differently here. Each second stretches into an hour. Loaders' hands are skinned to blood on the serrations of the breeches. Tunics are wet enough to wring out, darkened with sweat and soot. Paint on the gun barrels bubbles from overheating. Metal starts to turn blue. But the ZIS-3 guns continue to work. Soviet equipment is simple and crude, and that is precisely why it withstands this hellish rhythm. A German 88mm shell hits the parapet of the fourth gun. The explosion throws a ton of earth into the air. The gun is tossed up, one wheel flies off to the side. The crew is scattered by the blast wave. Someone tries to stand. Someone remains lying motionless. The neighboring crew does not look there. They have their own work, their own sector. If they get distracted to help, they will be destroyed next. The cruel arithmetic of survival. As long as the gun fires, it lives. The enemy column turns into a graveyard. Burning hulks have blocked the road. Those in the rear try to back up but run into destroyed comrades. Panic inside the steel boxes. Crews bail out of burning machines. They burn like living torches, rolling on the ground. Shrapnel! The loader changes the shell type. A shrapnel shot wipes out infantry trying to take cover by the road. The noise is such that men go deaf. Blood flows from ears, but no one pays attention. Commands are passed by kicks and gestures. Slap on the gunner's shoulder. Shoot. Slap on the loader's shoulder. Give the next one. The mechanics of murder are tuned to automatism. After 8 minutes, the shooting dies down. Not because shells ran out, but because targets ran out. Before the battery position is a mess of fire and metal. 23 tanks are burning or smoking. The rest, backing up, crawl away behind the hill, snapping back with disorderly fire. The breech of the fifth gun clangs in emptiness. Smoke in the barrel. Underfoot, mountains of spent casings, knee-deep. Silence crashes onto ears like a cotton pillow. Through the ringing breaks the crackle of burning diesel and groans of the wounded. 8 minutes of hell are over. But no one yet believes they are alive. The roar cuts off as suddenly as it began. Silence descends. It is not empty, it is ringing. A thin, nasty squeal persists in the ears. Concussion. It is the sound of burst vessels and overstrained nerves. The world around seems cottony, slowed down, like in a bad dream. Lieutenant Kovalev tries to stand. Legs do not obey. Knees tremble with a fine, nasty tremor. He leans his hand on the gun shield. Metal burns the palm, even through the rough fabric of the sleeve. The gun is red hot. Paint on the barrel has blistered into black bubbles and falls off as ash. Heat radiates from the breech, like from an open furnace. He looks around. The field before them no longer looks like a steppe. It is a graveyard of machinery. 23 black, smoking torches. 23 prides of German industry turned into piles of scrap metal. Tigers and panthers frozen in absurd poses. Some have turrets torn off, some are nose down in the earth, some overturned by ammunition explosions. The air is thick, black from the oily soot of burning diesel and rubber. The sweetish smell of burnt meat mixes with the smell of TNT. This is the smell of victory, and it causes nausea. Kovalev turns to his battery. Triumph is replaced by the icy cold of realization of the price. Out of 6 guns, 3 remain in service. The 4th gun was destroyed by a direct hit. In its place is a smoking crater. The barrel is twisted into a corkscrew, the carriage torn to pieces, wheels scattered for tens of meters.
The shield, designed to protect against machine gun bursts, did not save from an 88mm high-explosive shell. The 2nd gun is overturned by a shockwave. The trails stick into the sky like the broken legs of a grasshopper. The 6th fell silent back in the middle of the fight. The breech jammed. The crew died under machine gun fire trying to fix the malfunction. Kovalev walks along the line. He stumbles over casings. The entire space is strewn with them. Brass cylinders lie in a continuous carpet, crunching under boots. This is not just trash. This is the material embodiment of fire density. Hundreds of shots in 8 minutes. Hundreds of kilograms of gunpowder turned into kinetic energy. Medics are already working. A girl medic with a soot-smeared face drags a wounded gunner on a rain cape. He wheezes, pink bubbles escaping his chest. Lung punctured. She drags him silently, digging boots into the loose earth, clenching teeth to the grinding point. In her actions there is no female softness, only heavy male work to save biomaterial. Loss statistics begin to form in Kovalev's head even before the report. Battery staff, 36 men. He sees the bodies. No need to count. He knows each by name. But now names fade into the background. Now they are numbers in the irrevocable losses column. 9 dead. A quarter of the personnel. 9 people who half an hour ago smoked, joked, feared. Now they are mangled bodies covered with tarps, or simply lying by the wheels of their guns. 15 wounded, half of them serious. Torn limbs, shrapnel in the stomach, severe concussions. 12 men remain in the ranks. 12 deafened, concussed, exhausted people for 3 surviving guns. Kovalev approaches Kravtsov. The senior sergeant sits on a shell crate. He is alive. Face black from soot, only whites of eyes and teeth visible. He tries to roll a cigarette. Fingers do not obey. Tobacco spills past the paper. Hands are shaking violently.
This is the come-down. Adrenaline that kept the organism toned during the fight burned out, leaving emptiness and tremors. "Alive?" Kovalev yells, because he knows Kravtsov is deaf as a post right now. Kravtsov raises his head, gaze meaningless, wandering, then focuses on the lieutenant. Nods. "Alive." Lips move, almost no sound, voice ruined by commands. He looks at his shaking hands and suddenly starts laughing. It is a terrible laugh. Barking, hysterical, turning into a cough. The laugh of a man who looked into the abyss and saw the abyss blink first. "Did you see how we got him?" croaks Kravtsov, poking a finger toward a smoking tiger 50 meters away. "Like a tin can. Turret right off." Nearby, leaning against a wheel, sits a young loader. He is crying. Soundlessly, just tears flowing down dirty cheeks, leaving light trails. He looks at his hands. They are black in caked blood. He wore the skin of his palms down to the meat, ramming shells, but in the fever of battle didn't even notice. Now the pain has returned. "Water," moans one of the wounded. No water. Canteens are empty. Water went to cool the barrels. Men licked parched lips, but poured precious moisture on red-hot metal so the breach wouldn't jam from thermal expansion. Iron was more important than people. Kovalev looks at the battlefield. It is a picture of the apocalypse. Twisted metal of German machines mixed with earth and bodies. This is not a beautiful picture of victory with flags. This is dirty, bloody work. We accomplished the task. We stopped them. But the price of this success lies before the eyes. The exchange rate of this duel: 1 Soviet artilleryman's life for 2.5 German machines. Staff analysts will call this an outstanding success. Efficiency is off the charts. But Kovalev does not see numbers in a report. He sees the boot of a dead telephone operator sticking out from a pile of earth. He feels terrible fatigue, wants to lie down right here among the casings and close his eyes. But he can't. He is the commander. He is the brain of this broken, bleeding organism. "Check ammunition," he commands, voice alien, creaky. "Survivors, bandage the wounded. Guns to battle." "Comrade Lieutenant!" The miraculously surviving gunner of the second gun approaches him. He holds his head. A trickle of blood flows from his ear. "We have shells. 5 left. No armor piercing. Only high explosive." Kovalev nods. "Gather from neighbors. Drag everything available. If they push again, we'll hit with what's left." He understands. If the Germans send a second wave right now, they will simply be crushed. Nothing to shoot with. No men. But the Germans aren't coming. The burning hulks of their tanks are the best barricade. Smoke hides the battery positions, creating the illusion that an insurmountable force still stands here. Kovalev takes out his cigarette case. It is empty. Kravtsov hands him his crumpled hand-rolled cigarette, which he finally managed to roll. They smoke 1 for 2, passing the slobbery butt with trembling hands. Smoke tears the throat, but clears the brains a little. Ringing in ears starts to subside, giving way to groans and the distant rumble of the front. We are alive. We burned 23 tanks. We paid in blood. Now it is time to answer for arbitrariness. Kovalev sees a Willis Jeep making its way to the positions from the rear. Staff brass is coming to see why the German attack stalled on this sector, and why the battery stands not where indicated on the map. Tribunal is around the corner. But that will be later. And now Lieutenant Kovalev stands among mountains of metal and knows. He is right. His 9 dead soldiers are right. This pile of burning tigers is the only proof that matters. The staff dugout meets them with the smell of dampness, strong tea, and cologne. After the burning stench of the front line, this air seems sterile, unnatural. Lieutenant Kovalev stands at the entrance. He cannot stand at attention. Legs buzz as if filled with lead. Tunic stiff from sweat and dirt, crusted with someone else's dried blood. Face black, only eyes shining with feverish luster. 2 men look at him. Captain Gromov, staff adjutant, clean, shaven, spick and span. His belt creaks with new leather, buttons shine dull gold in the light of a kerosene lamp. And Colonel Filipov, regiment commander. He sits at a table piled with maps and looks not at Kovalev, but into space, drumming fingers on the tabletop. Silence in the dugout presses. Kovalev hears it through the cottony ringing in his ears, consequence of concussion. "Do you realize what you have done, Lieutenant?" Gromov's voice is sharp, shrill. It hits the ears. "You voluntarily abandoned the position indicated in the combat order. You brought the battery out into the open. You violated Regulation Articles number..." Gromov spews numbers. For him, war is order, schemes, and paragraphs. Violation of geometry on a map is more terrible to him than a tank division breakthrough. He walks in front of Kovalev, waving his arms. "This is a tribunal!" screams the captain. "Execution before the formation for cowardice and panic-mongering. You endangered the regiment's flank. You destroyed material assets. 3 guns lost." Kovalev is silent. He looks at the captain's clean boots, at his white hands that know not the weight of a shell crate. Inside, the lieutenant rises a cold, heavy anger. Not rage, but specifically the anger of a working man being lectured on life by a theoretician. "I did not abandon the position." Kovalev's voice is hoarse, alien. He speaks quietly, but Gromov falls silent. "I took the only possible position to defeat the enemy."
"Silence!" explodes Gromov. "Who gave you the right to discuss orders? You should have stood in depth."
"And burn there, like the 3rd battery yesterday?" Kovalev raises his eyes. His gaze is heavy, empty. The gaze of a man who has already died and resurrected. From a distance of 1,000 meters, our shells do not penetrate their armor. I shortened the distance. I evened the odds.
"You lost half your personnel."
Gromov pokes a finger in the lieutenant's chest.
9 men. You are a murderer, Kovalev. You laid down men for your adventure.
This is a blow to the gut. Kovalev clenches his teeth. Jaw muscles flex. He remembers everyone. He remembers how the loader with the torn-off arms screamed. He remembers how the tankers burned. "I laid down 9 men," the lieutenant says slowly. Each word comes with difficulty, like a shot. "And I burned 23 tanks. 23 heavy enemy tanks." Calculate the exchange rate, comrade captain. Or do they not teach math at headquarters? Gromov chokes with indignation. Such insolence does not fit into his worldview. A junior officer, dirty, stinking of burning, dares to lecture the staff. "Under arrest!" squeals the captain. "Surrender weapon! Counterintelligence will sort out your math." "As you were." Colonel Filipov's voice sounds not loud, but it instantly extinguishes the captain's hysteria. The colonel stands up. He walks to the trench periscope installed in the dugout embrasure. "Gromov, come here," he orders. The captain reluctantly obeys. "Look," Filipov points to the eyepieces. "Look there, at the ravine. What do you see?" Gromov presses against the optics. In the field of view is a panorama of hell. Pillars of black smoke rise to the sky.
burning hulks of tigers lined up in a row, blocking the road. This is a graveyard of German ambitions.
Piles of twisted, melted metal that just this morning were the elite of the Panzerwaffe. Gromov is silent. He has nothing to say. The picture speaks for itself. No regulation can explain this sight. By all rules, Kovalev's battery should have perished in the first 3 minutes without inflicting damage on the enemy. But it stands, and the tanks burn. Filipov steps away from the tube and turns to Kovalev. The colonel is old. His face is carved with wrinkles, eyes tired. He has seen many wars. He knows the price of regulations and the price of blood. 23 machines, you say? He asks. Yes, sir, Comrade Colonel. Confirmed. Burning. And the guns? 3 operational. Ammo running low. Men are at the limit. Filipov takes out a pack of Kazbek cigarettes, offers to Kovalev. Smoke. The lieutenant takes the cigarette with dirty fingers. The colonel lights it for him himself. This is a violation of subordination that makes Gromov's eyes go round. But now, in this dugout, other laws apply. The laws of victors. The captain is right, Lieutenant, says Filipov, blowing smoke. You violated everything that could be violated. You exposed the regiment. You risked everything. If you had missed, if they had broken through, I would have personally shot you. The colonel pauses. Only the hiss of the lamp is heard in the dugout. But you didn't miss. Winners aren't judged, son. Winners are awarded, or buried with honors. You got lucky. He turns to Gromov. Captain, scrap the tribunal report. Write a recommendation for awards. For Kovalev, Order of the Red Banner. For the others, for courage and the Red Star. Posthumously, too. But, Comrade Colonel, Gromov tries to object, it's a precedent. If everyone starts violating regulations, if everyone starts burning tanks 20 at a time per battle, we'll finish this war in Berlin in a month, barks Filipov.
Execute!
Gromov, red with anger and humiliation, sits at the table to write papers. The scratch of the pen on paper sounds like machine gun fire. Filipov looks at Kovalev again. You think you're a hero, Lieutenant? He asks quietly. No. You're just a lucky son of a bitch who found a way to survive. But remember, this way will now become the rule. You created new tactics, wrote a new chapter in blood in the manual the captain holds so dear. The colonel comes close. Sit down and write a report. Detailed. Distances, shell types, aiming points, ammunition expenditure. Don't write about heroism. Write about angles of impact and reload speeds. This experience needs to be sent around the division today. Tomorrow they will push again, and other lieutenants must know how to burn them. Yes, sir. Write report, Kovalev salutes. Arm is heavy. Shoulder aches. Go wash up, Lieutenant. You're scary to look at. You look like a devil. It's the job, Comrade Colonel. Dirty. Kovalev turns and leaves the dugout. Fresh air hits his nose again, but now it seems empty. The verbal duel is over. He won it, just like the artillery won. Not with beautiful words, but with the brute fact of the destroyed enemy. Manual logic crashed against the burning armor of tigers. Trench truth triumphed. But there is no joy, only infinite fatigue and the understanding, tomorrow it all starts over. Again mud, again blood, again risk. The award won't bring back the 9 guys lying now in a mass grave by the road. But their death is now not meaningless. Their death became a textbook by which thousands of others will learn to survive. Kovalev goes to his battery.
They are waiting for him there. That is his family. There, among iron and death, he is calmer than in clean staff offices. Everything is honest there. Either you pierced or you were killed. No half-tones. Colonel General of Artillery Nikolai Voronov does not look like his portraits in newspapers. Here, on the front line, there is no dress uniform with gold embroidery. He wears a dusty raincoat. On his face is a gray mask of fatigue. He looks not at the map spread on the hood of the Willies. He looks at the field, strewn with black skeletons of German machines. 23 tanks. This is not just a figure in a summary. This is 23 proofs that the doctrine has changed. Voronov walks around a destroyed Tiger, touches the jagged hole in the side with a finger. Metal is turned outward in petals, edges melted. This is a trace from a 76mm shell fired from pistol range. The general knows ballistics. He understands that making such a hole is possible only by violating all safety instructions. Lieutenant Kovalev stands nearby. He does not stand at attention. After yesterday's fight, he has no strength for regulation drill. He stands hunched, arms hanging like whips. Tunic soaked with salt. On the sleeve, a brown stain of dried blood.
So, 200 meters? Asks Voronov without turning.
Yes, sir, Comrade Colonel General. 200. Closer is impossible. Our own shrapnel would hit us. Further, ricochet.
And if they had sent infantry ahead? Voronov turns, drilling with his gaze.
Then we wouldn't be here, simply answers Kovalev. We took a risk, calculated on their arrogance. They thought we would run, but we dug in. This is not an excuse. This is a technical report. Kovalev explains the mechanics of the miracle. He draws a diagram on the ground with a twig. Here is the sector of fire. Here is the angle of shell meeting armor. Here is the kill zone. No magic, pure geometry. If guns are placed staggered and open fire simultaneously, the German column ends up in a fire bag. Turrets don't have time to rotate. Voronov listens carefully. He is an artilleryman to the marrow of his bones. He sees in this diagram not the heroism of an individual lieutenant, but a systemic solution to the problem of 1943. Captain Gromov, throws the general over his shoulder. The adjutant flies up with a folder. Write it down. Methodology for organizing anti-tank ambushes at extremely short ranges. Send to all anti-tank regiments of the front by 1200 hours. Kovalev's diagram, in the appendix. Let them learn. Anyone shooting from a kilometer, court-martial. Gromov scribbles in the notebook, breaking pencils. History is being made right here, on the hood of a dirty car, to the accompaniment of distant cannonade. The experience of one battery, bought at the price of 9 lives, turns into an order for thousands. This is the conveyor of war. Effective solutions scale instantly. Ineffective ones die along with the authors. Voronov takes a small box from his raincoat pocket, opens it. There lie shoulder straps with 4 small stars. Captains.
Take it, Kovalev. The general hands over the shoulder straps simply, without solemn speeches, like a master handing a higher precision tool to an apprentice who passed the exam. The order isn't out yet, but consider I signed it. Take command of the consolidated battery. Gather everyone who has intact barrels left. Your task is to hold this sector. I serve the Soviet Union. Kovalev's voice is raspy. He takes the shoulder straps. They are light, made of fabric and cardboard, but in the hand, they weigh a ton. New stars are not a privilege. They are new responsibility. Now he answers not for 6 guns, but for a whole breakthrough sector. Now he will send not 30 men to death, but 100. Kovalev does not smile. He hides the shoulder straps in his tunic pocket, closer to his party card. No time to sew them on. There will be no celebration. The band won't play. Champagne won't be opened. In the air, a familiar pulling sound grows again. Whistle.
Air! Shouts the observer.
General and lieutenant fall into the same dusty ditch. Status and ranks are erased before the face of a high-explosive aerial bomb. The earth shudders. Junkers are coming in for a bombing run. They iron the front edge, trying to mix with earth what the tanks couldn't destroy. Explosions raise fountains of black soil. Shrapnel squeals, shearing off bush branches. Kovalev lies covering his head with his hands. He feels the earth tremble. It is the tremor of a giant mechanism that knows no stops. Success in one battle does not mean the end of the war. It means only that you passed qualification and are admitted to the next round. More complex. More bloody. The bombing ends in 10 minutes. Dust hasn't settled yet, and signalmen are already pulling new communication lines. Medics run to craters. Kovalev stands up, dusting himself off. General Voronov is already at the car, barking orders into the radio. His work here is done.
He approved the tactics, awarded the executor, and drives on to another sector where the front is tearing. And Kovalev stays. A runner runs to him. "Comrade Captain!" He addresses him by the new rank, although there are no straps on the shoulders. Rumors on the front are faster than telegraph. "Observers report, movement in Square 47. Tanks, many." Kovalev looks at his watch. Only 2 hours passed since the end of the previous battle. Break is over. "Crews, to guns!" he commands. Fatigue is gone. There is automatism. Fighters who 5 minutes ago slept right on the ground jump up. They grab shells. They turn back into parts of the mechanism. The tactic is recognized. Now it must be confirmed with blood. Again. In neighboring trenches, to the left and right, other battery commanders who received the phone message from HQ feverishly change positions. They roll guns forward to the line of death. They curse, they fear, but they do it. Because they know. Kovalev survived. That means they have a chance too. The dagger fire scheme spreads along the front like a forest fire. Now Germans will be met not at a kilometer, but point blank. Kovalev approaches the panoramic sight of his gun. The gunner is wounded. His place is taken by the battery commander himself. He presses his eye to the eyepiece. The crosshairs tremble, but hands quickly calm the hand wheels. In the sight, gray boxes again. They crawl, reorganizing. They took into account the mistakes of the morning battle. Now infantry goes ahead. "High explosive," commands Kovalev. Loader rams the shell. Breach, clang. This is an endless conveyor belt. Killed one, 2 stand in his place. Burned a tank, a new one rolls out of the factory. Kovalev understands. War is not a feat. War is work. Heavy, dirty, endless work of processing metal and people. And he is the best master in this shop. He got a promotion. Now he is the foreman of the suicide squad. "Fire!" The gun strikes. The casing flies into a pile of identical casings. The cycle closed. Work continues. War turns into work. Endless, monotonous change of scenery, where only the smell of burning and the weight of the shell crate remain unchanged. The Kursk bulge remained behind, turning into a line in the personal file. Ahead, endless kilometers to the west. The calendar loses meaning. Days of the week are erased. There are only tasks and lines. Summer of 44. Operation Bagration, Belarusian swamps. There is no solid ground here like at Prokhorovka. Here is greasy, sucking mud that swallows gun wheels to the axle. Tractors spin wheels, roar, tearing cables. Men harness themselves into straps instead of machines. Artillery moves at the speed of a pedestrian carrying a bag of cement on his shoulders. Kovalev's tactics, born of desperation in the dry steppe, mutate here. In forests, distances are even shorter. Visibility, 50 meters. Tree trunks block the view.
German panthers here lose their optical advantage. They are blind. But they are still deadly. Fighting in the forest is shooting at sound. Crunch of deadwood, roar of an engine, gun turn, shot with canister shot through the clearing to knock down foliage and see the target. Second shot, armor-piercing, into the silhouette flashing between pines. Kovalev no longer counts destroyed tanks individually. They merge into one endless grey mass. Battalion statistics grow. 50 machines, 70, 100. This is not triumph. This is depreciation. Gun barrels wear out. Rifling inside the barrel channel erases from frequent firing. Shells start flying flat iron, tumbling in the air. Repair crews change barrel tubes right at positions, in the rain. Old tube unscrewed, new one put in. The gun gets a new life. Replacing people is harder. Autumn of 44. Poland. Vistula. Water is icy, grey. Crossing under fire. Pontoons tear from mine explosions. Guns roll into the water, going to the bottom with crews. Those who reached the shore bite into wet sand. Here there is no time to equip positions. Shooting right from wheels, standing knee-deep in water. Germans throw everything they have into battle. King Tigers, heavy Jagdpanther tank destroyers. Frontal armor of these monsters, 150 millimeters. Our ZIS-3 gun is powerless here, even point blank. Again, have to be cunning. Hit the tracks. Blind with high explosives. Call fire of heavy artillery, correcting it by radio. Kovalev screams into the receiver, tearing his voice. He sees his battery being ground by treads. But they hold the bridgehead. Not because they are heroes, but because the river is behind. Nowhere to retreat. You drown. Winter of 45. Odor. Snow black from soot. Frost -20. Grease in breaches thickens, becoming like glue. Before battle, breaches are watered with a mixture of kerosene and oil, warmed with torches. Hands freeze to metal. If you tear a bare palm from the trail leg, skin remains on the iron. Kovalev's battalion goes in the vanguard. Now they are not defending, they are cracking defenses. Tactics of fire bag are replaced by tactics of fire battering ram. Guns are rolled by infantry. Direct fire destroys bunkers. Concrete crumbles, exposing rebar. Fighters' faces change. Kovalev looks at the battery formation before the attack and catches himself thinking that he doesn't know the last names of half the soldiers. The old ones go. Sergeant Kravtsov died near Minsk, a stray mine splinter. Gunner Petrov burned with his crew on the Sandomierets bridgehead. New ones come. Kids born in 26. They have clean tunics and clear eyes. They haven't gone deaf yet. They look at Kovalev like a god of war, hung with medals. They don't know that these medals are payment for mistakes and for luck. Kovalev teaches them harshly. Teaches not to fear the tank, but to respect it as a dangerous mechanism that can be broken. Teaches to dig earth faster than a bullet flies. But they still die. War grinds up reinforcements faster than staff can write out Red Army books. Berlin, May 45. This is the marathon final. Urban battles. This is no longer a war of technology. It is a war in the vertical plane. Danger is everywhere. From basements, from windows, from roofs. Streets are piled with broken brick and rubble. Guns cannot be rolled. They are carried by hand over debris. The main enemy now is not the tiger, but the Faustnik. A kid from Hitler Youth with a disposable grenade launcher can burn a crew in a second. Rangefinders aren't needed here. Battle distance, width of a street, 30 meters. Kovalev commands fire on windows. High explosive shell flies into a second-floor apartment. Blows out walls, collapses floors. Dust is such that one has to breathe through wet rags. The battalion reaches the Tiergarten. Here, on the last hundreds of meters of war, Germans resist with the fury of the doomed. The last tiger crawls out from behind the Reichstag building corner. It is all scarred, missing fenders, blackened. It turns its turret toward Kovalev's gun. This is the last duel. Hands do everything themselves. Body remembers.
Armor piercing! In the side!
Shot. The shell hits under the turret. The tank jerks and freezes. Smoke pours from the hatch. Silence. It does not come immediately. First, shooting dies down in the neighboring block. Then machine guns fall silent. And only then, absolute, unnatural silence descends. Kovalev sits on the carriage. He takes out his cigarette case. Hands tremble, just like 2 years ago at Prokhorovka. He looks around. The entire road from Kursk to Berlin is strewn with metal. 173 destroyed tanks and self-propelled guns. That is his battalion's score. 173 steel monsters that didn't reach, didn't fire, didn't crush. A giant mountain of scrap if piled together. But there is another score. Kovalev looks at the formation. From the personnel that dug earth in the ravine near Prokhorovka on that hot July night of '43, 16 men remain. 16 out of 200 who passed through the battalion's staff over these 2 years. The rest remained lying in Belarusian swamps, in Polish sand, on German cobblestones. Metal fatigue is a term from mechanics. Metal accumulates microcracks and breaks. People are stronger than metal. They accumulate scars, gray hair, pain, but don't break. They just burn out from inside. Kovalev takes off his cap. His hair, once black, is now half gray. He is 26 years old, but he looks 50. He looks at his fighters, dirty, in lime dust, in torn quilted jackets over tunics. They don't shout hurrah. They just sit on the ground, right in the middle of a Berlin street, and are silent. This is not the joy of victory. This is the exhale of a man who carried an unbearable load to the end point and dropped it. War is over. Work is done. Shop is closing. But the ringing in ears from thousands of shots will stay with them forever. Just like the faces of those they left behind on this long road to the west. May of '45 ended not with a salute. For Stepan Kovalev, it ended with silence. So dense and heavy that it pressed on the ears stronger than the cannonade at Prokhorovka. The world, which for 2 years consisted of explosion roars, track clatter and commands, suddenly froze. And in this silence, what the war drowned out with its roar became audible. The voices of those who didn't make it. Decades passed. Stepan Ilyich Kovalev is now an old man. Time bent his back, like a shockwave bends a gun carriage. Skin became like parchment, hands covered with liver spots. But the grip remained the same. Hard, tenacious. These are the hands of a man used to holding not a cane, but aiming hand wheels. He sits in his room. On the table there are no medicines or newspapers. On the table lies a sheet of paper. an ordinary, checkered notebook sheet torn from a school notebook of the year forest. The paper yellowed, became brittle like an autumn leaf. On the folds it wore to holes and is glued with strips of cigarette paper. Ink faded, became pale violet, blurred in places from moisture. This is the list. There are 20 names in it. Kovalev knows them by heart, but every evening he puts on glasses in thick horn frames and reads. Not with eyes, with memory. Number 1. Sergeant Kravtsov, the man who taught the lieutenant not to fear the sound of a flying mine. Kravtsov remained near Minsk, covered by a random shard in a rare minute of calm. He didn't get to finish his last cigarette.
Kovalev still remembers the smell of that cheap tobacco.
Number 4. Private Sinitsyn, loader, 19 years old. He had the fastest hands in the battery. He rammed shells into the breach as if playing an accordion. He burned on the Sandomierets bridgehead when a German Tiger broke through to the position and crushed the gun into the sand, along with the crew. Number 9. Number 12. Number 20. Each surname is not a line of text. It is a face. It is a voice. It is habits. Someone had a burr. Someone loved to sing. Someone constantly lost his tobacco pouch. For history, this is statistics. Irrevocable losses. Dry numbers in reports. For Kovalev, these are friends whom he, the commander, personally sent to death with his order. His tactics, that very dagger ambush he invented in the ravine at Prokhorovka out of hopelessness, now entered textbooks. In military academies, cadets with clean faces draw diagrams on the blackboard.
They draw vectors, calculate angles of shell meeting armor, memorize standards. Kovalev's method, ballistics of close combat. For them, this is the geometry of war, abstract science of winning. They don't know that behind these vectors stands the smell of burnt meat. They don't know that this method is written not with chalk on a board, but with blood on soot-black snow. Kovalev doesn't blame them. Theory is always clean. Practice is always dirty. He often thinks about that day, July 12th, 200 meters of emptiness. Did he have a choice? Could he have acted according to regulations, stood at a kilometer and saved the men? Yes, he could have. They would have died half an hour later, shot from a safe distance, without causing harm to the enemy. He chose another path, the path of responsibility. This is the commander's most terrible weapon, more terrible than a cannon, more terrible than a bomb. The courage to take responsibility for others' lives. The courage to say, "We will die here, but we will take them with us." The courage to break rules for the sake of the result. Today, many speak of war with beautiful words, of heroism, of sacrifice, of sacred duty. Kovalev listens to these speeches and is silent. He turns off the TV sound. He knows the truth. War is not a parade. War is heavy, dirty, smelly work. It is calluses on hands, lice in trenches, dysentery and cold. And heroism is not a pose on a monument. Heroism is when you, deafened, concussed, realizing 3 minutes of life remain, continue doing your job. Loading, aiming, shooting. Without pathos, without hope for reward, simply because there is no one behind. Kovalev runs his palm over the table. Fingers hit ribbon bars. There are many. Red banner, red star, patriotic war. Metal chills the skin. But this sheet of paper weighs more than all medals put together. This is his personal score. The price he paid for the right to sit here, in a warm room, and look at the sunset. He doesn't cry. There are no tears. Tear ducts dried up back there on the odor. Only dry memory, hard as granite, remains. Memory is not grief. Memory is knowing the price. He takes a pen. The ink in it almost dried up, but he presses hard, tracing the names in the list, so they don't fade, so letters remain black and sharp. While he reads this list, they are alive. Kravtsov is still rolling a cigarette. Sinitsyn is still laughing, wiping oil from his face. They stand there, in 43, by their guns, forever young, forever angry, ready for battle. They hold the defense. There, in the past, they created a concrete wall against which a steel avalanche crashed, and this wall stands to this day. It is invisible, but it is stronger than time. Stepan Ilyich raises his head. His gaze is clear, prickly. There is no senile infirmity in it. There's the steel shine of a ZIS-3 gun barrel in it. We have no right to weakness. We have no right to forget. Not because politics requires it, but because if we forget their names, this line of defense will fall. They are dead, but they haven't left. They just took a position in eternity. And while we remember them by name, while we know how hard every meter of scorched earth was won, they hold the sky over our heads. Kovalev neatly folds the sheet, puts it in his breast pocket, closer to the heart, where the pulse beats. Thump, thump. Thump, thump. Like the metronome of blockade radio, like the sound of a bolt, like the steps of a sentry. List checked, personnel in places, guns ready for battle, sector of responsibility, eternity, distance, memory, fire.